years plus working for companies and working for the city and retiring after 30 plus years, they said the men that are coming out now, they better be ready to work for 5, 6, 7 different companies in their lifetime, and you better be willing to make a transition to another city. But you've got to work. You have to work. You say, well, it wasn't work part of the curse. And I want to live like I ain't in church. So I ain't going to work. So Paul says, okay, if you don't work, you don't eat. He makes a distinction between those who cannot work because of some physical ability or some mental difficulty and they can't get a job, or times when people can't find work because there's no work to be found, and laziness. And Proverbs speaks a lot about this to the men especially. Why? Because even though our wives sometimes will work and help and they will provide, it is our responsibility as the husband to be the provider of that household. Now let me say something to the ladies. That if the husband is going to be that provider of the household, if he's going to be the protector, if he's going to be the one to provide for that household, then ladies, and particularly wives, have to learn to live within what their husbands can provide for them. Wives have to learn to live within what their husbands can provide for them. Paul says, having food and raiment therewith be content. Ain't much more than having a roof over your head. If the husband has provided the basic necessities, he's done his job. All the other stuff is wants. God will even do that. And certainly if the husband has worked 20, 30, almost 40 years of his life, then the wife has to get to the point where she can allow the husband to rest. You cannot continue to always want and want and want, and a man can never rest. You've got to be able to work his life, but then get to the point where he can rest. But if the wants continue, he'll never rest. He's going to work himself to death. The third thing, the husband is also lover and protector. He's also sanctifier of the wife. And let me explain that, because only the Lord Jesus can set us apart. But we've also been called to be set apart. There is a practical sanctification that each of us has the responsibility for, and there's positional sanctification that only the Lord Jesus provides. He's talking about a practical sanctification here when he says, verse 25, notice that husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might what? Sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word. That he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle, or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. The husband is also responsible not only to be the lover of the home, not only to be the protector of the home, but he's also called to be the sanctifier of the home, to make sure that the home is set apart, that the home is clean, that the home is without blemish, that the home is without spot, and that the home is without wrinkle. But notice, particularly for that wife. Now listen to me, if the wife is going to be the submitter to the husband, then the husband needs to make sure that in his sanctification responsibilities, that he does everything within his own power to make sure that he's providing nothing in that household that would cause that wife to be unclean. So the husband has got to watch the material that comes in that house. That husband has to be careful about the programming that comes into that house. The husband has to be mindful of the music that comes into the house. The husband has to be mindful of his own responsibility, of his own sanctification in the presence of his wife. Why? Because it's the Lord Jesus Christ that when he presents the church to the Father, it's going to be holy and without wrinkle and spotless and clean and washed. We've got to be intentional about this today because men, I'm going to tell you, we're struggling. We're struggling, all of us. All of us, those of us who've been faithfully coming to the men's fellowship, we talk about this openly. There's a great book out called Every Man's Battle. Pastor Payne is using it with their young people today. And the young men need to know that it is a battle. And with the technology today, we've all got to be careful. Particularly computers and with the internet, with the cable television, the ability to be able to order movies and all of these things, that we've all got to be careful. But every father, every husband has got to be mindful of the sanctification in his house.